So I have just finished The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Didn't really like it, to be honest. I think the concept is fine. The execution for me was where it fell flat. Maybe a more talented writer, if they were at the helm of this, it would be more successful. But the social politics especially, I found it very difficult to get on board with. I think this book needed to be workshopped some more so that there weren't glaring issues with it. And yeah, not for me. It was really corny as well. Like, am I the only one who felt like this book, it was like a Hallmark Christmas film or like some weird Facebook page that posts like self-motivational like proverbs. It was so corny, the things that it was coming out with. Like, it was bordering on like a self-help book. I would not be surprised if this writer also writes those, because it was very that. It was like some sort of sermon from the Bible. When Nora is playing chess with Mrs. Elm, and Mrs. Elm is like, oh, a pawn is just a queen in waiting. Oh, I felt that cringe deep in my soul. Okay, so let's actually get into it. So our main character, Nora, she isn't very happy with her life, and so she attempts to unalive herself. Do we think a book should ever start on that event? You know, because that's so serious. And I think it completely soured the tone of the whole book going forward. And every time it tried to be lighthearted, and it just felt like there was a lack of care with our main character's mental states. Like, if you've already told me she has depression, this whole thing feels inappropriate. Like, the way that it was just casually throwing her into all these other lives through multiverses, I was like, no, no, it wasn't handled in a very delicate way. I think the book could have so easily not had that event happen. Like, just make it like, oh, Nora hits her head, you know, she gets hit by a car and she's in a coma, and that's how she gets to the Midnight Library. Why did it have to be as serious as, oh, she feels like there is no other option than to unalive herself? Like, I don't even know this character yet. That is so extreme. And realistically, this writer just doesn't have the depth to explore something as complex as what was happening. Like, the whole time it just felt like, oh, you're really doing a disservice to something that is quite serious and does touch lots of people's lives. So not completely satisfied with this. The thing as well about multiverses, it's very much like time travel in that it's a story trope that has been done to death at this point. But if you're going to do it, you have to be ready to give some answers and to think about logistically how this is going to work. And it felt like there were no rules. She was just going in and out of all these different lives. Oh, let's see, you know, what would have happened if you'd taken this career path, if you had gone on a date with this person. And the whole time, it just felt so inconsistent. And more than anything, what didn't make sense to me, why did she have to go into each new life without any context as to what had happened already in that life? Because she went into each life with no clue of what was happening. And so, of course, she wasn't going to like it, because everyone around her is treating her like a crazy person, because she's a fish out of water. She's not been in this life before. She doesn't know all of these things. And everyone's like, what do you mean? You're acting strange, Nora. Of course she's not going to like that life then. It was so frustratingly repetitive. I can't help but think as well, if she's going to parallel universes and seeing what her life could have been, what happens to the Nora who was already in that world before she came along? You know? Does that not worry you? What happens to the other Noras? Are they in heaven? Are they in hell? Do they go to purgatory? Are they still in her body, but like further down in the subconscious? I have so many questions, and the book has no answers. What happens to the other Noras? because that's messed up. Nora, without any consent, has pretty much taken this entire world from her alter ego, like from the other Noras. Why aren't we talking about this book? That seems like a big deal. Consent is real. If you're going to explore other people's worlds, maybe don't appropriate their bodies. I don't know. It was a weird place. I felt uncomfortable. And the book never addresses it. She also spends hardly any time at all in the other worlds. Like, she's thrown into a random world based on a book in the Midnight Library. And then the premise is basically, oh, the moment you feel disappointed, you'll be pulled out of this world and have the option to go into another one. What? There's no quest for the perfect life, because the perfect life doesn't exist. Like, the sentiment should have been, you will always be disappointed with life, not, oh, the moment there's a minor inconvenience, move on to something else. Like, what? I was so confused, especially because this character constantly quotes philosophy because she studied it at university, and her favourite philosopher is Henry David Thoreau, who, to be honest, I wouldn't even really consider a philosopher. I don't know. But either way, she was such a conformist, and the character just didn't line up for me. I was like, no, the picture you're painting, I'm not seeing it. I'm not buying it. I don't have space in my living room for it. No, thank you. The book just had no personality for me, and it felt very nice in like a basic way. Like, every single world she went into, it was either something occupational or, like, I don't know, she's in a relationship with this guy and now she's with another guy. Like, it was such a limited, poor, like, portrayal of, like, the life of a modern woman. And I don't know, it just, especially as it's a man writing it, it just felt a bit like, ugh, this feels very, like, puritanical. Like, why can't she have a life where she's doing something, like, illegal, or she's doing something that's, like, debaucherous? Why did every life have to be so nice, you know? And of course, the book is as predictable as it is poorly written. You can tell by the end of it that it's just going to be like, oh, this is a grass is greener trope. She's going to, through seeing all these other lives, appreciate, like, oh, my life actually isn't so bad. And then she's just given the option to go back to her original life. And it's like, ugh. I mean, she shouldn't really have that option because she unalived herself. Like, that's not really something you can come back from. And I feel like you trivializing this really serious issue is not okay. And the overarching morals, like, oh, just be content with your crappy life. I'm not feeling it. I'm really not. So yeah, that was The Midnight Library. I don't really care for it. I need to stop going near multi-million copy bestseller, like, A-lister books, because I feel like when a book gets into that territory, there's an element of accessibility. Like, those books are inherently watered down and basic so that non-book folk, like the people we have on Book Talk, will walk up to it in, like, a Sainsbury's and be like, oh, I can read that in between shifts, you know? It's not got the density of brilliance to really have any meaningful conversation about it. Because this book was trying really hard, but it felt like a kid's book. Like a really basic, really nice kid's book. Yeah, a total skip, in my opinion. Not one for the record books.